Hello and welcome to another New Jersey Folk Festival virtual. Right now we're gonna meet with some folks and talk about Oaxacan and particularly Mixteco music. And so let's go and meet them. We've got Miguel Villegas. Hi, Miguel.
Hello everyone. Ako kuya Antiquino, kui una isu chico Antiquino.
And we've got Tony Mendia.
Hello, everyone.
So Miguel is one of the artists we were going to invite to come to perform at the folk festival this year for our Oaxaca theme. And we're so sad that he can't come join us in person, but really excited that you can come and join us virtually. Tony is one of the students on the festival management team and also grew up in the Oaxacan community here in New Jersey. And Miguel, you're in California. So we're crossing the country here right now.
Yes.
Miguel, could you introduce yourself a little more? I know that you go by another name, Una Isu. Could you tell us a little bit about where you're from and what your identity is?
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. I am my formal name is Miguel Villegas Ventura, but my artistic name is Una Isu. Una Isu, it's a Mixtec word. It means 8 deer. It's an honor to the legendary warrior from the Codex, 8 deer Jagaclaw. But if I go a little bit back, I was born in San Miguel Cuevas, Cuslahuaca, Oaxaca, one of the Baja regions. And I migrated here in California, in Fresno, California, to be exact, when I was 7 years old. In my village, the language is spoken. It's still spoken right now. And I came here speaking the language. And it's over here when I started to learn formally Spanish and English. And I live here, I still live here in the same area, same region here in Central Valley. And there's a large population of farm workers here. So this is where many of our community has been established since many years. And now I'm fast forward, I am doing trilingual rap music because of my experience growing up here. You know, even if you go back to Mexico or any other Latin American regions, indigenous languages or indigenous communities has always been looked upon as low or has always been oppressed. So we face the same challenges here too in the valley, not only as indigenous, but also as just somebody that migrated here, right? So one of the things that issues that I went through was discrimination, identity discrimination. So at some point of my life growing up, I didn't understand why we were still speaking the language. I didn't see the value of it. I didn't see when you're in school, obviously the dominant language is English, right? Or in this case in Mexico, it's Spanish. But growing up here, I thought a lot about why do we need a language at all? You know, I didn't understand the importance of it. So I stopped for a little bit. I didn't see the importance of it, so I stopped speaking it. But then as I grew, I understood that it was really important to speak your language because it's a connection with your family, your community, your ancestors. And so
the language that you're speaking of is Mixteco, correct?
Yeah.
And one of the things we wanted to highlight in the festival and educate people about was the many indigenous cultures of Mexico in general, but particularly Oaxaca. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what Mixteco culture and tradition is like.
Yes, definitely. So just something really important to mention is that Mixteco has been the way that they categorize it once it became formal in Mexico. There are 16 indigenous languages in Oaxaca. and there's 68 recognized indigenous languages in Mexico. Mixteco or Mixtec, or however you want to call it, it's actually a word from the Nahuatl language. So Nahuatl language was the lingua franca, which was the kind of like everything was translated from Nahuatl because that was the biggest um, community that colonization came in contact with. So when they were asked, what do you call that region? Usually they will ask in Nahuatl. So they will refer to our nation as Mixtec or Mixtecal or Mixtecali, Mixtecapan. There was a lot of um, different variations of that word, but we call ourselves people of the rain, new savvy in our language. So we are reclaiming that as well. We are kind of switching it up, and we saying like, if we go deeper, we're not just Mixtec, we are new savvy or people of the rain. And our language is not just Mixteco, it's Tu'un Savi, language of the rain. So that's something that it's coming up more and more. Although the youth are growing up here, they are using it more and more. So just don't be confused about that. But the other thing is that before colonization, there wasn't a border. So the New Sabi nation, the Mixtec nation, can be found in Puebla, Oaxaca, and Guerrero. So basically, the borders got in between us. So we are found in different states, but we are the same nation. So there's 81 recognized variations of just the Mixtec language. So I speak one variation of my region. So um, it's just it's complex because many people think that we all understand each other, which is not usually the case. The farthest the community is, the less communication we have, the less we understand each other because words change. One example of rain, I say savi, other people say javi, other people say dawi, and it just changes. So that's a little bit of history of the bigger context. But the smallest context is that each community also has their own dances, their own traditions. So it varies. It varies. It's so diverse that it's really hard to get all of the different things that each community does.
I was wondering, I think you had one of the songs you were maybe going to share with us was a trilingual song. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and then share it with us.
Yeah, definitely. La Reconquista is the newest song that I made. It's supposed to come out in my new album, but it's been hard to finish an album because rapping is just something that I do on the side. I actually have a full-time job, and I'm trying to go to school. So, and then I do activism. So I can't do everything at the same time, but I continue writing and I continue doing it in trilingual because that's something that I like doing because I could connect with all three, communities or languages, right? So La Reconquista has been a song I wrote because I wanna you know, say that we are here, right? And we are connecting with our ancestors, and we are claiming the lands where we always been, and we are speaking a language. We are here, and our culture continues to be alive. And in the era of technology, we are using our language as much as we can. I could see youth in university students that are changing their names in their language as a even if they don't do like artistic stuff, they change it because they're trying to reclaim that language, right? And many youth are trying to learn the language of their ancestors or their parents. So in this case, La Reconquista just basically it's saying we are here and we're not going nowhere, and we're gonna continue fighting until the end. And that's what it kind of like talks about.
Mm-hmm.
So so would you like me to share the song with you?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so let me get the beat ready. Okay, here it goes. So, Anuko inindo jindo na nyunya tasu poraro naka ingatun kuniken shindo in ubi unidun nakate nudonji na chai ni mitutu shaketan japia ngendonji ni uro wanja naka unroton poro beti chikan jinde tana kana di chinu tasu di chika shanya kota unji takun rutu kutando kunta inindo nyakunya donji anyu yakati unratatu umbi na kusakashi Karo na kundasisi, karo na kukinishi, karo na kubashi, karo asini soto jindo na nyu na chindesi taro kana kubi kanaro chinu. Esto es la reconquista con lírica explícita. En mi música la realidad cruda, de eso no hay duda. Tu lucha también es mi lucha. Esto es la reconquista con lírica explícita. En mi música la realidad cruda, de eso no hay duda. Tu lucha también es mi lucha. De raíces no sabes, siempre consciente de eso. Emigrado, caminado, llegando al valle de Fresno, desde las montañas de la lluvia, este territorio. Vengo de lejos, pero en la frontera, en este pueblo, suelto letras, pueblo, letras de mis ancestros. Esto es lo nuestro, no estamos muertos. Es lo cierto, en este momento yo manifiesto el alma de un guerrero, el alma de un guerrero. Ocho venado, garra de jaguar, siempre bien hambriento. Y yo prendiendo el gran fuego interno dentro de mi cuerpo. Fluyo con el tiempo, también con el universo. Fluyo con el tiempo, también con el universo. Las letras de mi pueblo, seguimos avanzando. Esto va dedicado para toda la gente luchando, porque siente todo el furor, siente el temblor, porque seguimos en esto soñador. Esto es la reconquista con lírica explícita. En mi música la realidad cruda, de eso no hay duda. Tu lucha también es mi lucha. Esto es la reconquista con lírica explícita. En mi música la realidad cruda, de eso no hay duda. Tu lucha también es mi lucha. That's right. This is dedicated to everyone that is in the struggle. Your struggle is my struggle. Seguimos para adelante. Esta es una issue from the New Savi Nation. This is it, dear Jigga Claw, releasing it all, spitting my rhymes again because I haven't stopped. I was once locked inside a box, confused and lost in my four-corner room, writing down all my thoughts. But now I understand this was not a mistake. My native roots are stronger, they cannot break. I was born to represent until I'm gone, until the end. My friend, my people, that you comprehend. This is the reconquest, my community, I will defend. Your struggles, my struggle, are looking for the cure and key. The medicine we need to elevate your self-esteem. You best believe that we are warriors indeed, fighting every day to be released, mentally free, shattering the chains and shaking the society. My brown skin will glow along with the sun, the rain cures my anxiety. Esto es la reconquista con lírica explícita. En mi música la realidad cruda, de eso no hay duda. Tu lucha también es mi lucha. Esto es la reconquista con lírica explícita. En mi música la realidad cruda, de eso no hay duda. Tu lucha también es mi lucha. Yeah, muchas gracias, mi gente.
Awesome.
That's good. Yeah.
That was really great. That was really like I was super energized just listening to it.
Yeah, that's what it was meant for, to you know, so to get you going, to give you that energy that we all need and continue, you know, fighting physically, mentally, or whatever, you know.
Well, one of the things that, I'm so glad to have both of you to be able to be here and talk about is the community organizing, the things that you're getting up and fighting for. And I wanted, Tony, if you could introduce yourself a little bit. Tony, you are a student on the folk festival team here at Rutgers, but you are also working professionally in community organizing here in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
So um I grew up in New Brunswick, and my parents were immigrants. My mom was from Mexico. My dad was from Guatemala. My mom from Oaxaca.
Oh,
So growing up, my uncles and my aunts came over time, and we would hear all these stories about bad employers, bad landlords that kind of just abuse. They knew that they were new to the country, um, and knew that they weren't very aware of their rights as like workers and tenants. So it was a constant like abuse that would happen in New Brunswick. So fast forward, I started working for an organization that was community development. I didn't really know what that meant, but the director at the time, he kind of introduced me to organizing. And when I thought organizing, I thought huelga and like Cesar Chavez, and like that's what came to mind. And it it wasn't as cool and as extreme as that as what he was doing, but it was I was going out to the community and talking to people that I've been talking to my entire life, but having these resources to kind of show them like, oh, well, we can go after the bad employer, we can go after the bad tenants, the bad and rent landlords, and that became kind of the whole. My focus was workers' rights in
mm-hmm.
Brunswick, so I dealt with like wage theft, working with the state to recover wages, because they have a system in place for that. It's just that a lot of community didn't know how to tap into that resource. So that became my main focus in New Brunswick while I was working there, among community development, uh, which we try to uh, provide better housing, reinforce rights that they had. The city came up with um, with a program called what's the name of the board? It just slipped my mind. They focused on tenants on proper landlord practices. The city, so they were really responsive in all that and helping us kind of push that through. So that's a quick summary of what I did in New Brunswick. And again, it was a lot of the stories I was hearing when I was working at Unity Square were stories I heard growing up. The bad employer, the bad landlord. They're like, muchacho, how do we do this? How do we do that? And it's just, I'm like, or like, read a letter for me. I don't know what it means. Am I in trouble? And it was uh, first generation American, and most of the people that I went to school with were first generation American here. Their parents, exactly. We all had the same story. We all ate the same thing at home, and it was a lot of that. So, um,
Well,
organizing, but also like, yeah.
I was I wanted Isa, Miguel, if you could talk a little bit about the kind of activism and organizing you do, especially the way that you use music in that effort, particularly with like just like Tony was saying, the kind of kids who are growing up and having these experiences, and how do they connect to a sense of identity?
Yeah. If I go back growing up, I remember how the struggle that we went through, like just our parents going to work in the fields, just coming home tired, and not being able to, like, the most you know basic thing, which is connect the schools, right? And sometimes it's just language barriers. So I always remember, I will like do the interpretation to my mom, and or I will sign, like I will sign the paper, and I will say, if you agree, I'll sign it for you, and it goes to extremely where I would want to be part of a soccer team or something, and she's not home or whatever, for whatever reason, I will sign it, and I'll just let her know I joined the soccer team, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But if you go more deeper, there's stuff like medical, like when they go for the medical, when they go for anything that they need to sign, like they don't understand the language barrier. Like imagine if Spanish is already hard, imagine the Mixteco language, right? So we face the same barriers in terms of navigating the system. Um, but if I went through a lot, because there's part of my life where when I was 12, like many undocumented community, you get detained, you know. So my mom got detained, and she had to sign self-deportation, and so stuff like that. And then my older siblings were the ones that were taking care of me. So I was going through a lot of different things, like my neighborhood, like back in the 2000s, gangs were really big, and that's what got me into music, honestly, like just the rap music, the gangster rap music. And so the story goes back that I like school, but as I grew up more, I kind of like got lost interest of school. I dropped out, actually. I started working in the fields. But when I was in the fields, I started thinking about my future, and I was like, I have an opportunity to go to school, and I might as well take advantage of it. So that was working the fields full time. That was enough for convince me that I could do something else. Um, and it's not to make that work less, because it's really an essential work, right? But I knew I could do more. So I went back to school. I went out of town, San Jose Job Corp, and I got my high school diploma, my GED, and a trade. I came back, and I wanted to connect with internet. Helped a lot in this case, because I wanted to connect with youth that were Oaxaqueños. There was no youth group at all back then, and we came to see that many of us have the same interest of culture, and just to do something for ourselves and our community. So we created a youth group in 2010. It's called Autonomous, and that led me to connect with the nonprofit organizations called CBDAO, Centro Binacional para Desarrollo Indígena Oaxaqueño. And I never pictured myself working in an office, because I'm not an office person. And I never pictured myself organizing, because they needed an interpreter that was trilingual, because they needed to communicate the meetings from English to Mixteco. So I don't know what I was getting myself into, but I signed up, and they chose me. And ever since then, I have helped them a lot. I grew so much, and I did some nonprofit work, but then I also did organizing for our immigrant community, like Primero de Mayo. And then I started doing cultural events like El Aguetza, and then I started teaching. So a lot of things started coming, and that's, I did a little bit of landlord issues too, because they were taking advantage of the Mixteco community. They were not fixing anything from the house.
Yeah.
So I used to write letters, formal letters, and told them, like, this is what we need. I learned that you need to, like, document that stuff. So they didn't know how to write. So I helped them a lot. So I dealt with a lot of landlord issues here too, because they will always take advantage, and they will even like tell them like they will deport them. So there's a lot of injustices here in the valley as well in terms of landlord issues. But I also do interpretation too when they have a medical appointment, or conferences and things like that. But I kind of like tell all this story all mixed. But if I go back to 2010, Autonomous, that what got me to do trilingual rap, because they heard that I will rap a little bit in Mixteco, and they would tell everybody. And then they was like, he's a Mixteco rapper. I'm like, I still haven't recorded anything. But that got me to do the trilingual rap, and I did it in a cappella. I didn't have any beat back then, 2010. So our first event that we did as youth group, I actually performed, and people liked it. So I went back and recorded that song. So that's kind of like the history of that song, because the Mixteco Su Lenguaje has been a hit since that time, because all the people love it, the farm workers in my community, the elders love it. I never thought I would kind of like pay attention to it, because rap is always seemed like negative, but they were like, I like what you're saying. I don't know what the beat is, but I like what you're saying. So that kind of like impacted a lot of my community, like knowing that I could rap, and I do it in the language. And so everything that I have done in my life revolves around indigenous and language and community. eh, whether it's songs, whether it's organizing, whether it's teaching. So that's kind of like a summary of the things that I have done.
I know you had another song you were going to share with us. Could you share that with us now?
Yeah, so this song is called Mixteco Sin Lenguaje. This is the first trilingual song. I have several now. There is a music video if you want to look for it in YouTube. Just look for my artistic name, Unaisu, Unaisu, and you could see a video of 3 different cultures: the farm worker, the cultural one where they dance, and then the graffiti, which is a city. So I've lived in all 3 of them. So this summarizes a little bit about that. But it's called Mixteco Sin Lenguaje, and it just goes back and forth, mixing all the languages. So I hope you like it. Mixteco su lenguaje, no es un dialecto, solo que guarda un paño, aquí te lo presento, va ahora a ser trilingüe, ya no me das menos, esto va para los que asustan a todos mis oaxaqueños pequeños, pero por razones de guerrero, preservando la cultura, seguiremos creciendo, chile, curando, combina tanto punto na cairo, lo contamitana, intando sundo y cusindo cachinano, chicubisa mana nishindakani ininta santa, vinando cachina cochundo, from Mixteco to English, polygraph representing Oaxaca, hell yes, Mr. Zapote, Tricky. We all culturally rich and nobody takes it away from me. My memories, my dignity. A native from you who I would always be. Mixteco hasta la muerte until I die. Let me be free and spit everything I feel, cause I hope one day to see my prophecy fulfilled. The unity of my people together as equal. This is dedicated to my brothers and my sisters. Mixteco su lenguaje, no es un dialecto, solo que guarda un paño, aquí te lo presento. Ahora soy trilingüe, ya no me das menos, esto va para las que asustan a todos mis oaxaqueños. Yo Mixteco su lenguaje, no es un dialecto, deja que te exprese mis versos de conocimiento. Rescata tu cultura y no te digan lo contrario, procura avanzar para preservar lo más sagrado. No levanto la cabeza con orgullo de Benito Juárez, respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz, ya lo sabes, son frases inmortales que penetran en el alma del ser humano. Esto va dedicado para mis hermanas y hermanos, unidos como el amor de la princesa Dona Jinucano. Para mi país entero vamos continuando rescatando nuestras raíces rotos. Esto es el comienzo de una revolución mental, mi evolución personal. Ahora dime qué nos representa en este instrumental, porque ya no nos vamos a dejar dominar por sus insultos tan cobardes. Son especiales, deberé callarse, mejor les callo mi lenguaje. Chibiti, cuiva, cachindo rubí. Chibiti, cuiva, cachindo rubí. Y Shami, y Kabi, ya soy Chacunda y Nina, cuiva, tanta soy Nekisi. Mixteco su lenguaje, no es un dialecto, solo que guardo un paño, aquí te lo presento. Ahora soy trilingüe, ya no me das menos, esto va para los que asustan a todos mis oaxaqueños. Yo Mixteco su lenguaje, no es un dialecto, deja que te exprese mis versos de conocimiento. Rescata tu cultura, no te digan lo contrario, procura avanzar para preservar lo más sagrado. Now I got so much to give, so much to live, so much to change what is get, putting my roots in the map, waking up the mentally oppressed. Expect my rights to resurrect all these native souls that has been there, making a shift from embarrassment to a greater pride. Hey, where you from? Now you won't deny it. I'm from Oaxaca, yeah. Why would I hide it? Take your mask off if you don't like it, cause your native tongue is a treasure. Don't give it away. Find it down the river where you can never see it again. Hey, Kumiba, Sakananto, Chenta control, una isuquita, Sauninji, na Ribiso, Cheshaninji, Kini, na Santana Covindanto, Santine, Kissintisha, Lulukun Kenyani, Ne, Shanunani, Yanuku, Bella Shanui, Chalu, Ishikui, Chabichi, Intukami, Mixteco su lenguaje, no es un dialecto, deja que te exprese mis versos de conocimiento, rescata tu cultura, no te digan lo contrario, procura avanzar para preservar lo más sagrado. Mixteco su lenguaje, no es un dialecto, deja que te exprese mis versos de conocimiento, rescata tu cultura, no te digan lo contrario, procura avanzar para preservar lo más sagrado. Yeah, it's dedicated to all our people in the struggle, los que están en la lucha. La lengua originaria sigue siendo lenguas, no solamente son dialectos, no solamente son menos, son lengua, filosofía y cultura completo. Gracias. Ahí está.
That's good. Nice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to like kind of bring our conversation to a little bit of a close by asking a question. Like, you guys both have many similar experiences, on opposite sides of the country. And I was just curious if, Oaxaqueños have connections across the country and to Mexico. Like, is there a community that brings you guys together across the geography?
um, let me see. So it's yes, and then with more complexity,
Mhm.
because Oaxaca is so big. Again, like I mentioned, there's 16 different nations, and within each nation there is variations. So if we talk about just the Mixteco nation in Oaxaca, not counting Guerrero, not counting Puebla, um, there is like 81 different variations of the language. Uh, I'm talking about, see, like Spanish, Castellano from Spain, they
Mhm.
have the variation of Mexico, the variations of Colombia, Venezuela, Cuba. That's all dialects, and that's what I'm trying to get to, right? Those are dialects, but they continue to be language at the same time.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm saying, like, why don't you call all those dialects? Why you call our native language just dialects? But um, going back to your question, we are connected in terms of community, like each community. But when we see each other, we recognize each other and we support each other. And there's many different ways that we could be connected. It's either whether we have to fundraise for our community, or we have a fiesta. Like here in California, uh, just the Mixteco community, we connect through dances.
Mhm.
So every time somebody does a fiesta in Santa Maria and um, and Conquer and Madera, Fresno, Carruthers, like we invite each other to dance to our different celebrations, and people are willing to drive and go to those dances, and we support each other. Like if I went to dance to your fiesta, and when I organize it, you come to dance to my fiesta,
Mhm.
and so through that we are very connected in California. The Dance of the Devils, which you will find on my video, Diablos, La Danza de los Diablos, is very popular here. There's so many groups now. I never thought I would see that growing up, and so through that, just that, they are really connected. So and then there is the the other part of connection, which is work. We connect each other to find work,
Mhm.
and we also end up all the way in Oregon or Washington. So through that, we know each other. We know which community is from where, and when they speak, we said, "Oh, what community you're from?" We speak different. Oh, I'm from this community, right? Um, but in terms of like, unless my community is found in New York or New Jersey or other areas in the East Coast, um, for now, I have no connections over there, but I'm pretty sure other people from other towns that do have their community over there, they connect it. Like if somebody dies and they have a mutual fund, uh, you know, agreement as a community, then they were like, hey, can you send some money so we could support each other? And they're connected through that. So I know my community is in Oregon, Washington, and I had some communities that went to Delaware. I used to work like in a warehouse for when they would kill chickens. I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
And so that's the farthest I know that my community has been to. And some people have gone to Florida, but overall, the rest are over here.
Mhm. Yeah, I know that we got connected through an activist in the community here in New Brunswick named Teresa Vivar, and she's the person who connected me to you.
Yeah.
So I hope that we can continue to be connected, because this is, I think, a really rich kind of conversation that we're just beginning to have through the Oaxacan community here in New Brunswick for this, well, in this particular context of the festival. I know the Oaxacan community in New Brunswick's been doing Guelaguetza for a long time, and many other activities. So I think.
Yeah, just to clarify, there's different levels of communication, because
Mhm.
I was going more like deeper, the people that don't have access to technology, whatever. But in terms like me, myself, organizers, we are connected with Teresa,
Mhm.
and now we know each other, and now we know what's going on over there. And she asked me what's going on over here. So like Guelaguetza and all that stuff, like we are connected definitely, and I have met more and more people over there. So I have met some Mixtecos from Mount Vernon, no, not Mount Vernon, from Puebla, and they even told me about a restaurant over there. So I would like to try it. So
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, and organizing or level, we are connected for sure.
Well, I think this is probably a good place to to end our conversation. But I just want to make, is there anything else that either of you would like to say before we sign off here?
You know, it seems like activism is just in all in the Hispanic community is just going to keep happening. Like you said, it's very community bound. I don't have as much experience as like maybe Teresa or you have. So my connections aren't fully. I haven't met the people that I've wanted to meet. I guess is like I still have many more people to meet. So that um, it's developing still. This isn't like what we've done so far isn't the like the set formula. The next generation will do a little more. And I think it's really important to hold on to that culture. Like I have younger cousins that don't speak any Spanish. Imagine just Spanish. They only speak English. So I think a part of activism is holding on to your culture, right? But also empowering the community that I saw for so long be oppressed here in my community in New Brunswick. So just something to keep in mind in terms of like when we're talking about activism.
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned before, just the music itself have, you go be connected with many ways: organizing, artistically, work, academic. Like there's so many ways, and the other way that I got to connect with some people over there was through music. They invited me a conference, a LASA conference, Latin America um, Studies, something like that. And I got to go to the Bronx, like the place where hip hop, has history. Bronx, Brooklyn, and just going there, I was so happy to just get to see the bridge, get to see the community, and then we actually performed there in the Bronx. I connected with some artistic rebeldias. It's some rappers as well who has done a lot of activism here there in the Bronx, and we connected. So I'm really happy that I get to see there. So for sure, I definitely would like to go back and continue building these relationships that we have, because at the end of the day, we have very similar struggle, if not the same struggles.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. This has been a really wonderful conversation, and connecting us across the country and across languages. And I'm just so glad that we could have this opportunity, even though we couldn't meet in person for the festival. So hopefully another time in the future. And I'm just gonna wave goodbye, and I'm gonna sign off with us here, just saying thank you to Rutgers University American Studies Department and the New Jersey Folk Festival, and also to the Middlesex County Office of Arts and History for supporting these artist encounters. And thank you very much. We hope to see you another time.